Part 120. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1192. Chapter 1192 Advanced Swordsmanship Epee. Mazuri completely ignored the huge wounds caused by the opponent's superb swordsmanship and pounced on the opponent. At the same time, with a flick of the little finger of his left hand, a vermilion pill shattered silently, and a thin bloody line, with a grey evil light, silently shot towards Suchen. Laugh. Suchen easily pierced the opponent's head with a sword, but at this moment, instead of letting out a sigh of relief, he looked as if he was facing a powerful enemy that he had never seen before. He didn't even bother to pull out the sword, and kicked the ground with both legs, frantically. Retreat violently. It again. A cry of fear, rage, and endless hatred echoed in the vast dense forest outside Juying Valley. The first time he saw the bloodline evil light, Suchen's brain was instantly filled with blood. Unforgettable hatred welled up from the deepest part of his heart, making his eyes red. Half a year ago, it was this bloodline evil light that took away the middle-grade water spirit root that he had always been proud of. As a result, he was expelled from the Kingxia sect, and he narrowly escaped death several times. I didn't expect to see you here again today. Suchen was well aware of the power of this bloodline. He flew wildly through the dense forest, and the dragon's footwork instantly improved to the extreme that he could achieve. It wasn't until he noticed that the bloodline was being pulled further and further away from him, and finally fell to the ground, that he cautiously approached it. A slender centipede that was as long as a little finger and as thick as a few hairs was lying in the grass. When it felt Suchen's approach, it suddenly exploded with amazing bouncing power and flew towards Suchen's head and face. Suchen cut it into 2 pieces with a sword. Only after confirming that it was dead could no longer die, did he take a closer look. The whole body of the slender centipede is red, and its appearance is no different from that of ordinary centipedes. However, I didn't expect that such a small thing could actually take away the spiritual roots of the monks. Suchen carefully wrapped the 2 body parts of the centipede and swept them towards the place where Mazuri died. Seeing this slender centipede, he suddenly regretted stabbing the horse to death with a sword. Being able to use such evil things must be related to the fact that his spiritual root was taken away half a year ago. Now that Mazuri is dead, his 2 companions have also had their heads cut off. This is the clue that he finally came across. Broken. After digging out all the valuable things on Mazuri's body, Suchen unexpectedly found a small purse that was slapped by a child, but he didn't say anything. Is this a storage bag commonly used by monks? The mustard seeds contain sumuru, and there is everything in the bag. Suchen tried to pour his own spiritual power into it, and immediately encountered another strange spiritual power. Thinking about it, this should be the mark left by Mazuri. However, when he poured more spiritual power into it, this strange spiritual power was immediately dispersed until it disappeared. Then, a space of 1 cubic meter appeared in his consciousness. This storage bag is the lowest level storage bag in the world of cultivation. It is only 1 cubic meter in size, but its price is also very expensive for Suchen. It takes 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones to exchange it. In the corner of the storage bag, there was a small pile of low-grade spiritual stones. A rough count showed that there were as many as 500 pieces. This is really a treasure, Suchen couldn't help but sigh. In addition to these spirit stones, there are also many bones, skins, etc. of monster beasts. They are all first-order low-level and mid-level monsters. They can be exchanged for about 300 spirit stones. In addition, there are more than a dozen waste cards of Vajra sect disciples. It seems that the Vajra sect disciples who entered the outer trial of Juying Valley suffered a lot in the hands of Ma Zongri and the others. The only thread-bound book floating in the storage space, Suchen thought, and the thread-bound book immediately appeared in his hand. When he opened it, he saw that it was a yellow-level high-level swordsmanship epee. However, Suchen didn't take a closer look and quickly put it away. This is not a safe place, and the three of them, he shall, were injured. If they encounter any monsters or monks, it will be a disaster. Suchen crushed Ma Xunri's head with his foot. After destroying the body and removing all traces of it, he picked up his sword. But unexpectedly, his hand felt heavy. The sword worn by Ma Xuri was actually very different from the swords used by ordinary people, and was extremely heavy. After Suchen got used to it, he danced a few sword flowers and estimated that they might weigh more than 80 kilograms. Then I thought that it must be related to the epee, so I put the sword together into the storage bag and turned around to take a turn with He Xiao and the others. 2 days later, Suchen carried Zhao Yuding on his back, and He Xiao carried Tan Kaiyang on his back, walking out of the dense forest outside Juying Valley, and finally reached the King Kong Gate safely. The four of them stood in front of the Foreign Affairs Hall. Zhao Yuding's innocent and beautiful appearance attracted the attention of the young male disciples around her. Is this going to be a separation? Tan Kaiyang's eyes were full of reluctance, and her eyes looking at He Xiao became gentle. Zhao Yuding lowered her head, not knowing what she was thinking. Both women's faces were a little pale, and it was obvious that they had not recovered from their injuries. This is what we got from this hunting. I have already divided it up. It belongs to the three of you, so I will give it to He Xiao to divide it. Suchen handed over a small cloth bag, which contained some spiritual stones that the 6 saw-toothed porcupines exchanged for this time in the Foreign Affairs Hall. He Xiao did not hesitate, nodded, and took the bag. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1193. Chapter 1193 The Crux That Cannot Be Broken Through. The four of them have experienced this life and death crisis and have become much more familiar with each other. There is no longer the politeness at the beginning, but more of a friendship that cannot be expressed in words. Seeing that everyone was in a low mood, He Xiao shouted, "We are all disciples of the Vajra section. There will be plenty of time to meet again in the future. Now that the three of us are seriously injured, please don't hold Brother Ye back." Speaking of this, He Xiao looked at Suchen, waved his fist and said, "I heard that the duel between you and Jin Shenyang will be in 2 months. Don't have any worries, beat that kid down. We will all support you." The captain can definitely win. Tan Kaiyang also clenched her fists to cheer up. Zhao Yuding then raised her head, her eyes became hazy at some point, she looked at Suchen and said softly, "Be careful." Suchen knew that she wanted to say more than just these 2 words, but he didn't dare to think any further. He has also felt some changes in Zhao Yuding's emotions towards him in the past few days, but there is still Luo Bingning waiting for him in Luo City, and he really doesn't want to live up to Bingning's waiting. After everyone parted, Sushini immediately found a quiet place and started practicing intensely. There are only 2 months left before the duel with Jin Shenyang. There is not much time left for him. If he wants to defeat him, he must break through to the 8th level of Kaiwu within these 2 months. To break through to the 8th level of Qi martial arts, one must first practice the Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu to the 1st level. Only then will one's own body be strong enough to withstand the violent impact of spiritual energy generated during the breakthrough. These days, Suchen and He Xiao had finished eating 1 saw-toothed porcupine, and there were still 5 left. I don't know if I can reach the 1st level after eating these 5 serrated porcupines. Next to a quiet mountain spring, there were 3 bonfires, and the finished glyphs surrounded Suchen, who was sitting cross-legged among them. On each bonfire is a piece of sawtooth porcupine meat weighing dozens of kilograms being roasted. The aroma of the meat is overflowing, adding a touch of life to this otherworldly place. If it weren't for the difficulty of obtaining monster meat and the high price, I'm afraid this bodybuilding technique would be the most enjoyable training method in the world. Suchen was sweating profusely and biting into a piece of roasted hind leg meat, his face was glowing red, and there was a faint layer of white mist around his body, it was the sweat mist evaporated by the rolling heat in his body. Have been here for 4 days. From digesting half a saw-toothed porcupine a day at the beginning to 1.5 a day now, Suchen clearly felt that he was digesting monster meat at an abnormal speed while practicing physical training. As far as he knew, ordinary Qi martial realm monks, even if they reached a small level of body forging skills, could only digest half of this amount of 1-star mid-level monsters in a day. But now, he can digest 1.5 in 1 day. The key is that this happened when he has not even reached the first level of Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu. Logically speaking, if you eat such a huge amount of 1-star mid-level monster meat, you will either explode and die, or you will have already broken through the first level. The reason why there has been no breakthrough till now is probably because of the fragmented scroll technique. As he practiced the fragmented scroll technique for a long time, Suchen realized more and more that this technique was too magical. He became more and more curious, who created such a magical technique? And what is the reason why this technique has been circulated for thousands of years, and now only these 3 layers of fragments remain? Shaking his head, Suchen threw away these doubts and concentrated on operating the Dragon Elephant Prajna technique. 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What we have to do now is to keep our feet on the ground and break through the bodybuilding exercises to the first level. As for the secret of the residual scroll technique, if there is a fate, it will naturally be solved in the future. When the last piece of sawtooth porcupine meat was eaten, Suchen couldn't help but belched. My head feels dizzy and lazy, as if I have been soaking in a hot spring for a long time. The skin all over his body was red, and sweat was constantly secreting and steaming. If someone laid an egg on him now, it would probably be steamed in a quarter of an hour. But for Suchen, these temperatures are not noticeable. The heart method of Dragon Elephant Prajna Gong does not need to be deliberately activated, and guides the heat flow in the body to continuously wash away the 8 meridians, internal organs, and bones. An extremely subtle click sound came from the body, and the muscles and bones were strengthening at a speed visible to the naked eye. With a sound, the spiritual energy in the body shook violently, and quickly formed a circular tide, radiating around. What is surprising is that as the tide spreads, traces of microscopic energy slowly escape from the muscles and bones in the body. Undetectable mysterious energy flowed into it. As the radiation distance grew longer, the spiritual energy tide not only did not subside, but became stronger and stronger. Its surging power swept through the spiritual energy in Suchen's body in an instant. Boom! It seemed like someone threw a firecracker in his mind, or opened his skull. Suchen felt his consciousness suddenly enlightened, and the abundant spiritual energy in his body, as well as the remaining energy of the monster flesh that could not be vented, all poured into Article 8. The meridians surged away. The turbulent force made the meridians feel like they were about to be torn apart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1194. Chapter 1194 Breakthrough, Plum Blossom Sword Lumame. A breakthrough is about to occur at this time. Suchen suddenly woke up from his dazed state, immediately focused on his mind, and tried his best to guide this unprecedented energy into a spiral shape, and with a momentum of failure or success, he slammed towards the 8th meridian. Go! There was no huge roar as expected. Perhaps the sound of the impact was too loud. Suchen only felt that everything around him became quiet at this moment. The 8th meridian is connected. At the same time, the first level of Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu is completed. In a cool stream, Suchen dived into it and washed away all the stains on his body. These were impurities naturally expelled from the body after a breakthrough. At the same time, this also marks that his body is more pure and powerful. Standing at the bottom of the water, Suchen held his breath and concentrated, and punched out. An air bubble was created, and it traveled far away before bursting. So strong. Suchen was secretly surprised. The punch just now was probably not more than 800 kilograms strong, enough to knock an adult female saw-toothed porcupine away. But when such a punch hits the bottom of the water, its speed and power will directly knock it away. The surrounding water tore apart, forming a large air bubble. If someone happened to be standing in front of this air bubble and was hit by it, they would probably die or be injured. I remembered that I had to fight a saw-toothed porcupine before, and it took a full 30 punches to defeat it. After beating that beast to death, the corners of Suchen's mouth turned up slightly. If there were a saw-toothed porcupine standing in front of me now, I would be confident that I could kill it with one punch. Pinched the skin on his arm. It was soft yet tough. If the muscles were tightened, it could even defend against ordinary swords. Although this dragon and elephant prajna kung fu is only a low-level yellow-level skill, because I practice the residual scroll skill, it has a bonus effect, and it actually exerts the effect of an intermediate yellow-level or even high-level skill. It seems that the choice of practicing bodybuilding exercises is correct. After holding it under the water for a long time, the stains on his body were washed away. Suchen felt comfortable all over. With a kick of his legs, his body immediately shot out from the bottom of the water like a cannonball, and his body jumped out of the water. Ah! A scream suddenly sounded next to him. Suchen, who was in the air, turned around in shock. I saw a 28-year-old girl with a delicate face and fair skin, half floating in the water. Thief! The girl yelled, with a murderous look on her face and shy eyes. She patted the water with her tender hands, and immediately countless water swords came towards Suchen. Condensed water can be used as a sword, and internal energy can be used externally. Suchen was shocked, knowing that this woman's cultivation level must have reached the 9th level of Kaiwu or above, otherwise she would not be able to use this move so easily. Both fists immediately came out, and there was a loud explosion, and the water sword was struck. They exploded one by one, and Suchen was also pushed to the shore by the impact. The girl hid her body in the water, leaving only her head above the water. Seeing that Suchen could turn her water sword away with just 4 or 5 punches, there was a slight surprise in her eyes. Although this move of condensing water into a sword was only 30% of her skill in a hurry, it was not something that just anyone could catch. However, she is a cardamom girl with an innocent body, and today she actually how could the anger in my heart be easily dissipated when I was innocently looked at by this adulterer? Who are you? Suchen put on his clothes and pants, then turned towards the girl. Ah! Turn around. Otherwise I will kill you, the girl screamed and sank into the water. Suchen was stunned for a moment, turned his back, clasped his fists and said Suchen, I didn't know that the girl is also bathing here. It's so rude, but I still hope Hai Han. After a while, no one answered. Suchen was about to turn around when a gust of fragrant wind suddenly came over him. A chill ran down Suchen's back, and he took 7 steps back without thinking. He saw a plum blossom composed of sword light, which seemed to be slow but fast. Arriving in the air, it exploded and dissipated 3 inches in front of you. Plum blossom sword. Suchen narrowly avoided the sword, stared at the girl in front of him, and said in a solemn voice, Are you Lumame? You know how dare you do such dirty things? You thief, take your life. Lumame had already put on her clothes at some point, and a cold blade pierced out. The plum blossoms looked brilliant, but in fact they were filled with cold light and hidden murderous intent. According to legend, Lumame ranked 5th among the outer disciples of the Vajra sect, and she had plum blossoms in her hand. She is so skilled in swordsmanship that she has few rivals. There are even rumors that although this woman is only 16 years old, her cultivation has reached the peak of the 9th level of Kaiwu. She is only 1 step away from reaching the 10th level of perfection, and the energy in her body is already releasing. is the favorite to win the outer sect competition half a year later. Coupled with her beauty and sexiness, she has become the dream lover of many male disciples of the Vajra sect, and many inner disciples are interested in her. But this is the woman's body and mind are intoxicated with cultivation, and she is so powerful that no one has ever been heard of winning her heart. But these have nothing to do with Suchen now. Lu Mumei is worthy of being the fifth-ranked existence among the outer disciples. One sword is stronger than the other, and one sword is stronger than the other. The sword struck Suchen faster than a sword. Suchen was a little embarrassed to resist these crazy plum blossoms that exploded. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1195. Chapter 1195 Escape. Life is endless, pursuit is endless. Each plum blossom is made up of hundreds of sword lights, and each sword light has the strength of a 7th-level Kaiwa disciple to attack with all his strength. Lu Mumei's thrust with the sword was like 100 Kaiwa 7th-level disciples attacking Suchen with all their strength. Even though the latter had a strength far beyond that of ordinary Kaiwa 8th-level disciples, it was quite troublesome to parry. After all, no matter how bad the sword light emitted by a monk at the 9th level of Kaiwa is, it still contains the spiritual power of the 9th level. For a confrontation with the same amount of spiritual power, Suchen's 8th level Qi martial arts requires 3 parts of his spiritual power to offset 1 part of his opponent's spiritual power. Fortunately, the amount of spiritual power cultivated in the residual scroll technique is large. If Lu Mumei keeps attacking like this, Suchen will not be defeated for a while. Suchen retreated step by step. Although Lu Mumei pressed forward step by step, she felt more and more surprised in her heart. When did the Vajragate have this person? Judging from his cultivation level, he has just broken through to the 8th level of Kaiwu, but he can still be defeated even with 10 of my moves. However, this person actually destroyed my innocence today. If I don't teach him a lesson, it's hard to eliminate the hatred in my heart. Lu Mumei scolded, and the spiritual power in her body was no longer retained, and burst out. I saw plum blossoms all over the sky, floating and falling, as if a plum blossom rain suddenly fell from the sky. Flower Sword Rain. This move is the first move of Lu Mumei's famous sword move Plum Blossom Sword, and it is astonishingly powerful. Suchen saw that an area of 10 feet around him was enveloped by this rain of swords. It was difficult for him to parry a single plum blossom, let alone one. So many plum blossom rain. 36 strategies are the best. Suchen had to use the wandering dragon footwork, swayed out of the attack range of the flower sword rain, and escaped. Lu Mumei did not expect this loot thief. He actually had such excellent body skills that allowed him to escape right under his nose. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and stamp his feet, and said in a hateful voice, "Don't let me meet you again, otherwise, humph." I didn't expect that Lu Mumei, ranked 5th, was so powerful. I couldn't resist her simple move. Walking on the mountain road, Suchen sighed secretly. It seems that although my strength has increased, it is still not enough for a true Kaiwa master. Moreover, Lu Mumei was only ranked 5th on the top 10 list of outer disciples. The one ranked 1st is probably close to the Suanhui realm in strength. For Suchen, his goal is not only to defeat Jin Shenyang in 2 months, but also to win the first place in the outer disciple competition half a year later. In the annual competition between the outer disciples of the Vajra sect, the top 10 winners are given generous rewards at different levels, including techniques, martial arts, elixirs, and treasures. In order to improve his strength and take revenge as soon as possible, Suchen has a crazy desire to possess all the help that can improve his strength. Moreover, he used to be the #1 outer disciple of the Qingxia sect, a sect that was more than 10 times larger than the Vajra section. Now, in this small sect, he no longer has the courage to compete for the first place. No. Revenge is my goal, and pursuing martial arts is also my goal. In this life, Life is endless and pursuit is endless. Moreover, he has already broken through to the 8th level of Kaiwu. What else can restrict his way to take off? Reaching the 8th level of Chi martial arts, you can already barely use spirit stones and spirit dew. With the strong support of these heaven and earth spiritual beings, it is only a matter of time before your strength improves by leaps and bounds. Although I have just broken through to the 8th level of Kaiwu, I have a solid foundation due to practicing bodybuilding techniques. Even if I continue to practice with spirit stones, I will not go crazy. Suchen thought secretly. However, he did not intend to use the spiritual dew at this time, because the spiritual energy contained in the spiritual dew was extremely pure and more in line with the spiritual power of the monks, while the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone seemed a bit complicated because it contained the vitality of heaven and earth. It is complex and not suitable for monks to absorb directly. He planned to use the spiritual dew when he broke through to the Suanwi realm at the 10th level of Kaiwu. Naturally, good medicine must be used on the blade. He found a hidden and quiet place and used his sword to carve out a dark room. Sat cross-legged in it, and immediately began to practice. Pulling out a spiritual stone, Suchen carefully probed into it with his mind, and guided a very thin spiritual energy thread into the body with great caution. However, he still underestimated what was inside the spiritual stone. The violent degree of spiritual energy. Immediately after this spiritual energy thread, a spiritual energy belt that was more than 10 times thicker spurted out, and quickly filled all the meridians. The sudden change shocked him, but he could be regarded as having gone through the strong wind and waves. A person. When something unexpected happens, his heart is still intact. He immediately runs the residual scroll technique at full speed, trying his best to digest this mixed spiritual energy. 1 circle, 2 circles, the spiritual energy circulates over and over in the 8 meridians, constantly removing the waste. Jing, leaving behind gradually purified spiritual energy. It was slowly assimilated by the original spiritual power in Suchen's body and became docile. The sun sets, the moon rises, the moon sets and the sun rises. 1 day passes. When the first ray of morning sun shines on when he was on the body, there was only a click sound, and the spiritual stone in his hand shattered and turned into a few ordinary stones, with no spiritual energy at all. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1196. Chapter 1196 Heavy lifting is as easy as lightness realm. The strength reaches 1,000 pounds. Suchen opened his eyes and his eyes flashed. He exhaled a long breath of white breath, which reached 3 feet away, condensing and not dissipating. In just 1 day and night, his cultivation level was raised from the elementary level of the 8th level of Chi martial arts to the intermediate level of the 8th level. Spiritual stones are worthy of being the treasure of monks' cultivation. Walking out of the dark room, Suchen stood up and stretched out, and there was a crackling sound in the bones of his body. After practicing for a day, I feel more energetic. Suchen ate something casually, took out the Epei martial arts book in his storage bag, and began to comprehend it. Epei has 2 realms. One is lift a heavy weight as if it were light, the second is lift a heavy weight as if it were heavy. This volume is the first realm. A heavy weight is a light weight. If you achieve this state, you can move 1,000 kilograms of heavy objects with your fingers, and with one move, it will be so powerful that no one can stop it. Just looking at the beginning, Suchen secretly thought that he had found a treasure. This lifting a heavy weight as if it were light should be a high-level Huang level skill, but the missing lifting as light as if it were heavy is probably only a Xian level skill that can reach this level. This is if this Epei sword is not incomplete, it is probably at least a mid-level Xian level skill. However, even if it only reaches the realm of lifting a heavy weight as if it were lightness, it has reached the level of a yellow level high level skill, which is enough for the current Suchen to use. If there is a chance in the future, I must find the missing second volume. After carefully studying the technique, an hour later, the 80-pound long sword that Ma Ziyuri carried fell into his hand. Suchen's right hand sank slightly, and he held it firmly. With his current Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu, the first level of strength has a strength of 800 kilograms. Swinging such a long sword weighing 80 kilograms is just like playing. There was a burst of flying sand and rocks, and the whistling sound was endless as the heavy sword flew. As if there were suddenly countless ghosts howling, it was really scary. The key point of the first state of lifting a heavy weight but taking it lightly is to heavily first and then lightly. It's just that this épée is far from the weight limit I can bear, and it doesn't help me quickly understand the essence of this move. Suchen was thinking and searching around. When he saw a huge stone weighing 1000 kilograms, his eyes suddenly lit up. Dragon and Elephant Prajna Gong says that only when the practice is profound can a practitioner have the power of 1000 kadis. I have just reached the first level of practice and I have the power of 800 kadis. I thought that if I could practice this épée sword again, I would probably have the power of 1000 pounds. It seems that Kung Fu and martial arts still depend on who practices it. Ordinary people only have the strength of 1000 kadis when they reach the top. If I come to practice, I don't know if I can break through to 2000 kadis of strength. If I break through to 2000 kadis, even if I hit when I reach the early stage of the Suanwi realm, I can fight with my physical strength alone. Holding his breath and concentrating, Suchen shouted loudly, wrapping his arms around a huge boulder, with veins all over his body protruding and muscles shaking, as if he was overwhelmed. "Give it to me." With a violent roar, the whole body's spiritual power was poured into his arms. In his hands, a huge boulder rose tremblingly from the ground. Huff, huff. A heavy breathing sound came out from his mouth, and Suchen's eyes with a glare, his legs felt like they were stuck in a swamp, and he walked forward with difficulty. If he just threw this 1000 jin boulder, it would not be too strenuous. But to hold it and walk, the energy consumption would be far more than the former. And Sudust, what you want is this effect. If you don't squeeze yourself to the limit, how can you make progress? Every step you take will leave deep footprints and several drops of sweat on the grass. Gradually, the footprints cross the grass and turn over after crossing the hill, bypassing the woods, and returning to the starting point. Boom! Suchen's arms were released, and the boulder hit the ground with a loud bang. His whole body was already soaked, and he lay on the ground in a big shape. His muscles were uncontrollable. Trembling, sore and unbearable, he couldn't even lift a finger. However, he knew that this was the best time to practice, so he gritted his teeth and sat up cross-legged, running the Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu mental method. The next day, Suchen spent a full 200 spirit stones to buy the meat of 2 one-star high-level monsters in the Foreign Affairs Hall, and then continued to train to carry boulders. He would not eat monster meat until all his strength was exhausted. Compared to one-star mid-level monsters, the energy contained in the meat of one-star high-level monsters is more pure. Suchen estimates that it will take 10 days to fully digest the amount of meat from these 2 monsters. 10 days later, a vigorous figure walked nimbly through the woods holding a huge boulder. This figure didn't run very fast, but it was very steady. If you observe carefully, you can find that the footprints behind him are not as deep as imagined. If someone didn't know better, they would think that the boulder he was holding was a hollow shell, and it would definitely not weigh more than 300 kilograms. The effect of the meat of a one-star high-level monster is really powerful. In just 10 days, I gained a full 400 pounds of strength. I also had some success in the épée technique, which saved me about 200 kilograms of energy. Putting the two together, it used to require spiritual help to carry this huge boulder, but now it is much easier. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1197. Chapter 1197. The number 1 outer disciple of the Vajra sect, Zhang Sushan. After throwing down the boulder, Suchen wiped his sweat, kicked his legs lightly, and his figure immediately rose 2 feet tall, feeling extremely relaxed. At the same time, although there is no spiritual power to cultivate in these 10 days, it has increased a lot now. I believe that it will not be long before I can break through to the 8th level of Kaiwu. Haha! This compound cultivation method is really good. While exercising, I also practice the Epei technique, and because of the residual scroll technique, it also has a boosting effect on the spiritual energy in the body. It achieves multiple things with one stone. But now there is no more monster meat to eat, and the price of a 1-star high-level monster meat worth 100 spirit stones is too high for him. After thinking about it, he decided to go to Juying Valley again and give it a try. With the current strength, can I hunt down 1-star high-level monsters? 1-star high-level monsters are different from 1-star mid-level monsters. The former is more powerful than a monk at the 9th level of Kaiwu. There is no one who has reached the 10th level of Kaiwu. Don't expect to defeat this kind of monster with strength. Suchen thinks to himself that his strength is not low. With his current middle-level cultivation of the 8th level of Kaiwu, plus a strength of 1,200 kilograms, he should have no problem dealing with ordinary 9th level Kaiwu monks. Next. However, he is still a little unsure whether he can defeat the 1-star high-level monster. After all, monsters are different from monks. Their natural evil aura and quick, accurate, and ruthless fighting methods are far beyond those of ordinary monks. Another night of practice has passed. Suchen's cultivation has reached the late stage of the 8th level of Kaiwu, and he is not far away from opening up the 9th meridian. It's time to go to Juying Valley again. Suchen is ready to go. There is a mode in everything he does. After more than 10 days of practice, the spiritual energy in his body has become a little empty. Going to Juying Valley to experience it will strengthen his spiritual energy and open up the way to the 3rd chapter. 9 meridians, breaking through the 9th level of Qi and martial arts to lay a solid foundation. Nearly 2 months have passed. In an ordinary small town at the foot of Mount Jinggongmen, a small restaurant called Kaze Lai was full of guests, exchanging cups, chatting, and it was very lively. In the middle of the restaurant, there is a large table made up of 4 or 5 8 immortals tables, surrounded by more than 20 heroes, all of whom are full of energy. Brothers, a big event happened in Nanao town 3 days ago. Do you know about it? Scared? Are you talking about the 3 tiger gangs' annihilation? Such a big thing has already spread hundreds of miles around. A diner next to him asked curiously what, the 3 tiger gang was wiped out? I wonder if you heroes can tell everyone about it? The knight was not annoyed at being disturbed. He grabbed a pair of chopsticks and banged the porcelain bowl. He looked around and said loudly, since everyone is interested in listening, I will tell you. These 3 tiger gangs have always been entrenched in Nanao town, and the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd leaders in the gang are all masters of the Suanwi realm. Even though they were all in the early stage of the Suanwi realm, it was not something a Kaiwu realm monk dared to offend. But 3 days ago, a 17-year-old boy, alone, killed dozens of people from the Sanhu gang in half an hour. The 3 masters all died with a sword piercing their eyebrows. Tisk, tisk, this method is too cruel. Who is this young man? With such strength, he must be at least a master of the Suanwi realm. No. No, the knight knocked on the porcelain bowl, shook his head and said that young man only has perfect cultivation of the 10 major levels of Kaiwu. The diners around were shocked and their faces were full of disbelief. Don't believe it, this young man is now in the Vajra sect, and he is the number 1 outer disciple of the Vajra sect, Zhang Sushan. As soon as the knight said the 3 words Zhang Sushan, the people around him immediately looked astonished. It's no wonder. I've always heard that this boy has amazing strength. Now that he has such a record, although it's a bit unbelievable, it's not impossible. The story of the night immediately aroused the interest of the surrounding diners, and soon they began to rank the top 10 outer disciples of the Vajra sect. Number 1 is definitely Mr. Zhang Sushan. Do you have any objections to this? Everyone shook their heads. The second, third, fourth, and fifth ones are Crazy Devil Han Chuang, Little King Kong Zhang Hong, Monument Destroyer Huang Ziniu, and Plum Blossom Sword Lu Mumei. I don't agree with this. Although Han Fengmo, Zhang Jinggang, and Huang Jibei are very strong, Plum Blossom Sword Lu Mumei has improved her strength after half a year of training, and can at least rank among the top 3. Ha, shameless words. Does Zhang Hong, the Little King Kong, have a false reputation? Crazy Devil Han Chuang is even more afraid of monsters. Are you allowed to talk nonsense about the first 3? Could it be that you just randomly rank someone else's little girl because she was pretty? Everyone laughed. The diner who was laughed at blushed and said, a month ago, when Miss Lu was on a sect mission, she fought against the 4th-ranked Huang Ziniu due to a mission dispute. Just 10 swords forced the latter to give up the mission. Many people have seen this, and you can check the authenticity at any time. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1198. Chapter 1198 Carrying the Flaming Stone Cow to the Restaurant? Everyone was so scared that they peed. And this. It seems that the Vajra Gate competition held half a year later is quite interesting. Another diner came with a drink and said loudly, these are not the only things to see. As you all don't know, half a month ago I passed by the outskirts of Juying Valley with a few people, and unexpectedly saw a young man, holding a long knife in his hand, fighting a 3-eyed tiger at a high level. Dare I ask this man, who is this young man? Could it be that he is also a disciple of the Vajra sect? He is an outer disciple of the Vajra sect. The 10th-ranked Jin Shenyang Jin Gongzi. A knight from the Jianghu murmured, the 3-eyed tiger is a 1-star high-level monster, even an ordinary master of the 10th level of Kaiwu would find it difficult to fight with him. I never expected that Mr. Jin could be so powerful. Tisk tisk. It seems that the ranking of the top 10 disciples of the outer sect is going to change a lot. Just when everyone was temporarily quiet, a thin old man sitting in the corner suddenly said in a hoarse voice. 3-eyed tiger? He is just a weakling among the 1-star high-level monsters. If I said that one day ago, I saw a young man beat a flaming stone cow to death with 3 fists in Juying Valley, would you believe it or not? Everyone burst into laughter. Old man, we are telling the truth, not bragging in the competition. You should drink 2 more tails of wine and go back early to rest. The thin old man was not upset. He was holding peanuts one by one, and his eyes with droopy eyes occasionally had a glimmer of light. Someone with extraordinary eyesight accidentally saw clearly the old man's 9th level of Qi martial arts, and hurriedly pulled it secretly. He pulled his companion's sleeves and whispered in a low voice. However, there were more ordinary warriors in the restaurant, and they could not see the old man's cultivation. He still smiled to himself and said, Master, we are not laughing at you. Since you said that the young man killed a flaming stone cow with just 3 punches, can you tell everyone what kind of cultivation the young man had? However, the 8th level of Kaiwu is only perfect, the old man said in a low voice without even turning his eyelids. Whispering sound, the diner curled his lips and said with a smile, a young man who has reached the 8th level of martial arts, with only a pair of meat fists, and only 3 punches, he defeated the king of 1-star high-level monsters, the notorious Flaming Stone Bull. Dead, haha, that is a ferocious beast that even the masters in the early stages of the Suanhui realm dare not provoke, haha, this is the first time I have heard such bragging. Uncle, you are awesome. The juniors admire you. But just when everyone cast contemptuous glances at the old man, the latter's ears suddenly moved slightly, and his body hidden in the long robe tensed up, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Something strange suddenly appeared outside the restaurant. A series of suppressed exclamations sounded. Some diners were curious, and just about to look out, they found that the light at the door suddenly dimmed, and a huge thing blocked the door. After everyone got used to the light, they looked up and saw after clearing the huge thing, I was so shocked that I dropped the chopsticks in my hands. Oh my God! It's the Flaming Stone Bull. The Flaming Stone Bull is coming. Everyone didn't expect that when they talked about the Flaming Stone Bull, this ferocious beast immediately appeared in front of them. The key is why they didn't hear the sound before. How did this ferocious beast from Juying Valley get here? But it was chaotic. In the restaurant, few people had the sense to think about these issues. One by one, they ran like wolves and fled, wishing that their parents would give them 2 more legs, etc. This flaming stone cow is dead. There is someone down there. Some sharp-eyed people screamed. Ah! Dead. Damn, I was so shocked that I almost peed. The diners were cursing, some were looking for clothes, and some were picking up dropped weapons. Only the restaurant owner felt sorry for his broken cups and plates, and was thinking about how to talk to get compensation from these rude men. With a bang, the Flaming Stone Bull, which was 3 to 4 meters long, 2 meters high and weighed 2,000 kilograms, was casually thrown to the ground, revealing a naked young man underneath. This young man exuded a strong smell of blood and had sharp eyes. Like a knife, the diners who were swept by his eyes bowed their heads and remained silent, as if there was a huge stone weighing on their hearts, with huge pressure. Waiter! Hurry up and serve 50 kilograms of beef and 10 kilograms of good wine. I'm hungry. The young man randomly found an empty table, sat down, and said loudly. Perhaps he was a little surprised that there were so many people in the restaurant, but it was so quiet. The young man glanced around and found that everyone's eyes were evasive and glanced at the flaming stone on the side. The cow carcass couldn't help but touch his nose, feeling a little embarrassed. This was not because he wanted to show off, but because the storage bag with only 1 cubic meter could not hold such a large monster. This flaming stone cow was a 1-star high-level monster. The best thing among beasts, the monster meat, he has covered it all, but its horns, tendons, cowhide, etc. are all treasures and can be exchanged for many spiritual stones. Don't throw them away. There is no other way, just now that I can carry it all the way, I can harvest the eyeballs that fall to the ground along the way. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1199. Chapter 1199. What is genius? This is called genius. After a while, 2 waiters carried a large plate of beef and a large jar of wine, placed them gingerly on the young man's table, and then ran away without even daring to shout. The young man didn't mind. He had been hungry for a long time, and he immediately started to feast regardless of the surprised looks around him. About half an hour later, under the astonished eyes of everyone, the young man ate a full 50 kilograms of beef and 10 kilograms of wine. After paying for the meal, he picked up the 2,000 kilograms of flaming stone cattle and slowly disappeared. Outside the gate, there was total silence in the restaurant. Ahem! A sudden coughing sound suddenly sounded, startling everyone. The thin old man pointed to the door, and whispered with fear in his eyes, "Here, the young man I met a day ago is him." Gudong! All the diners swallowed hard. Then, was that young man really the one who killed the flaming stone bull? A bearded knight from the world widened his eyes and looked at the direction the young man was leaving. His lips trembled and he murmured something stuttering. "What do you think?" The thin old man chewed peanuts, took a sip of old wine, threw down a few grains of silver, and staggered away. "I don't think that old man can tell lies." Seeing that the thin old man had left, a knight suddenly said, "Oh? How can you see it?" A master of the 9th level of Qi martial arts has no business lying to low-level warriors like us, the knight said loudly, looking at the diners who had ridiculed the old man earlier with disdainful eyes. Hiss. Everyone took a deep breath, and some people even had chills on their backs. They wished they could slap themselves in the face, they almost got into trouble. Come on. Another fat diner whispered weakly, but a young man of such a young age can kill a flaming stone cow with 3 punches. This is too. Are you trying to say that this is too far-fetched? Another diner added, but this is from the perspective of ordinary warriors like us, but don't forget, this world is never short of geniuses. What is a genius? Only those who can do things that ordinary people cannot do are called geniuses. Everyone nodded. I wonder if you have ever seen that young man's cultivation. Everyone looked around, and the knight with a calm face said softly, if you are not at the 9th level of Kaiwu, you should be at the perfect state of the 8th level of Kaiwu, as the old man said. Hiss. Everyone gasped again. At the 8th level of Kaiwu, he was able to kill a 1-star high-level king demonic beast, the flaming stone bull, with 3 punches. This strength is really daunting. Is that young man also a disciple of the Vajra sect? How come I've never seen it before? I also looked at Jian Sheng, but the direction he left was exactly where the Vajra gate was. I think he is a new disciple who has just entered the Vajra section. What a terrible future. You and I, who are in our 40s, are not as good as a young man. It is really shameful. There are so many awesome young people in the world, so ordinary people like us should not ask for heartbreak. Come on, come on. Drink 2 more glasses of wine, call some brothers later, and venture into the Juying Valley. Maybe you can make a fortune. Suchen didn't know that one of his helpless actions actually made a group of diners in an ordinary restaurant sigh. But even if he knew, he had no time to care. Because, a few annoying flies appeared in front of me, which was annoying. At the foot of the Vajragate mountain, several outer disciples of the 8th level of Qi martial arts stood in the middle of the road and surrounded Suchen. The ordinary disciples of the Vajra sect who passed by stayed away and looked at Suchen with sympathetic eyes. This guy's work was in vain, he didn't know where he moved such a valuable monster, and now he wants to take advantage of these scum. Seeing that the people around him were looking at him evasively, as if they dared to be angry but dare not speak, the expressions of several people became even more arrogant. One of them glared at Suchen, raised his eyebrows and said, "Junior brother, look at your face. Student, was he a new recruit half a year ago?" Suchen looked at the people in front of him with unkind expressions. His eyes were always wandering around the flaming stone bull on his back, and he immediately understood in his heart. He said with a half smile but not a smile, "So what?" One person took half a step forward, looked Suchen up and down, and saw that the latter had a perfect cultivation level of the 8th level of Kaiwu. Although the 3 of them were all at the 8th level of Kaiwu, they were all slightly lower than Suchen. Chen's strength surprised him a little. Are all the newly recruited disciples of the Vajra sect so strong now? Or does this kid have some backing? Little brother, I don't know your name yet, but you all know your senior brothers. This person wants to find out some details about Suchen. The surname is Su, and the single name is Chen. Hiss, the man was thinking for a long time, is there a family member named Su in the Vajra sect recently? He made eye contact with his companions for a moment, looked at Suchen again, frowned and said, "Who is the respected master?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1200. Chapter 1200, Robbery in Person? You have to take it with your life. Judging from the fact that this boy has good strength, it is not impossible for him to be accepted as a disciple by an uncle from the Suanwi realm in the sect. In this case, they can only smile and send each other off. He, Suchen smiled indifferently, I am alone, without a teacher or an expert. Hey, a few people sneered, and they all saw the look of greed in each other's eyes. And judging from the stunned look on this kid's face, he probably wouldn't lie. How can he let others snatch such a little fat sheep if he doesn't snatch it? A complete flaming stone cow. Corpse. If this could be exchanged for spiritual stones at the Foreign Affairs Hall, it would cost a full 500 yuan. It would definitely be a windfall. When the people watching heard Suchen's answer, they all shook their heads and sighed, now it's better. There is no chance to regain the position after being robbed. These scumbags will bully us, the poor disciples. However, the Vajra sect never cares about these things, and even acquiesces in non-fatal conflicts between the disciples. I don't know when the sky will have an eye, and someone will come to clean up these scum that bully the weak and fear the strong. Of course, everyone can only think about these words in their minds, and they don't even dare to say them. If those few people hear them, it will be a disaster. It is certain that Suchen is alone and helpless. The man's expression immediately changed and he shouted, where did you steal this monster beast on your body? Tell the truth now. Otherwise, we will not only collect this stolen goods, but also fulfill our obligations as senior brothers and teach you a lesson. I killed the monster, not stole it, Suchen said calmly. Oh, you killed him? You don't take a pee and take a look at yourself, what the hell are you? With your little cultivation, if you don't engage in crooked ways, can you get a flaming stone cow? Even a senior brother who is at the 10th level of Chi martial arts dare not say that he can certainly hunt and kill a flaming stone cow, so how dare you make such nonsense here? The speaker looked at the crowd and asked loudly, everyone, this guy said that he killed the flaming stone cow. Do you believe it? No one answered, but looking at everyone's eyes, it was clear that no one believed that Suchen killed the flaming stone cow alone. The man walked towards Suchen and sarcastically said, look, no one believes what you said. So what? Suchen raised his eyebrows and said. Hey? Boy, he has a bit of character, I like it. Several people surrounded Suchen, gearing up, and sneered, hurry up, put down the stolen goods, your senior brothers have a bad temper, don't force us to take action. Suchen glanced at these people. The lowest cultivation level was the early stage of the 8th level of Kaiwu, and the highest level was only the late 8th level. Although they were powerful enough for ordinary outer disciples, it was far from enough for him. Step aside. Don't force me to take action, otherwise you will definitely regret it. Yo yo yo. The outer disciple in the middle said sarcastically in a strange way, those words sound like those of us from the Vajra sect, come on, brothers, don't be polite, loosen the bones of our good junior brother, and let him know the rules of our sect. These people think that although their cultivation is a little lower than Suchen, they each have their own unique skills, and they have the strength in numbers. Could it be that they can't repair a brat who has just started? If you don't eat the toast, you will be fined with wine. Brothers, do it. A few people clearly didn't give Suchen a chance to resist. They adopted the strategy of surrounding him as soon as the fight started. Suddenly, the blows from their fists, palms, and legs were all in one. Give me a hand as an attacker. Thunderbolt punch. Look at my tornado legs. The palms are like blades, the fists are like cast iron, and the legs are better than steel whips. The three of them went all out as soon as they got started, with unparalleled power and ruthlessness. The onlookers were so frightened that they couldn't help but take a step back to avoid the disaster of Chiu. It's over, it's over. These three people obviously didn't give them any chance. This junior brother named Ye is going to be in trouble. More than that. Look at the fierce looks of the three of them, it's obvious that they want to kill the chicken to show the monkey. Even if that poor junior fellow apprentice is not disabled, he will have to lie in bed for half a year. 3 people beating one person is simply too much. Why doesn't this junior brother run away? What are you doing standing there? Are you already scared out of your wits? If you can't win, run away. There are many people bullying the few. There is no shame in running away in this situation. Everyone saw that three powerful attacks were about to fall on Suchen, and they were secretly worried. Even if the latter's cultivation level was slightly higher, how could he withstand a full blow from three people of the same cultivation level? He was no match for six with two fists. And, no matter how expensive a flaming stone cow is, you still have to live to get it. Why is this young man so stupid? Doesn't he know that leaving the green hills without fear of running out of firewood? In the eyes of everyone, Suchen is so weak at this time the force alone made people feel sympathy. The fists and kicks of the three people quickly approached Suchen, and even the former's palm wind, fist wind, and leg wind lifted the latter's long hair. Some onlookers couldn't help but close their eyes. They couldn't bear to see the tragedy happen. At this time, Suchen had not made any move, and the three of them thought that he had been frightened out of his wits, and the cruel sneer on his lips became more and more rampant. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1201. Chapter 1201, What do you mean, do you want a fight? Snored. Don't blame us for being cruel, just blame you for taking things you shouldn't have. Even a poor family wants to compete with us for things. It is simply wishful thinking. You'd better be beaten by me, otherwise I'll destroy you. You should feel honored to be used to establish your authority. Suddenly, Suchen moved. He held the flaming stone bowl on his back with one hand, staggered his feet slightly, and slowly punched out with his right hand. However, this punch was extraordinary in the eyes of the onlookers. The punch seemed slow but was actually fast, and those with slightly lower strength even felt dizzy due to this illusion of fast and slow. Bang! Most people present only heard the sound of a fist hitting the flesh, and then they were shocked suddenly. They discovered that the three men who were coming with a fierce momentum were knocked away by Suchen's punch at the same time. Poof! The three people were still in mid-air, and they spurted out a mouthful of blood almost at the same time, and they all fainted when they fell to the ground. The power of a punch was so powerful. In the field, Suchen slowly withdrew his fist with a calm expression. He stabilized the monster on his back and walked towards the Foreign Affairs Hall again. The spectators unanimously gave way and watched. As he left, strong people always make people feel a sense of awe. After a while, someone reacted and was shocked. Wait, it seemed just now, no. This is impossible. The three punches were in different directions and speeds. How did he defeat them with just one punch? There were one or two people with excellent eyesight in the field, and they said slowly, "You are wrong, it is not one punch, but 3 punches. 3 punches? Could it be that my eyes are deceived? Or was he punching so fast that I couldn't see clearly?" The former shook his head and did not answer. Instead, he exclaimed in a low voice as he walked, "The punch is so fast, but the power can make an 8th level Chi martial arts master vomit blood and faint. The key point is that judging from his expression, it seems that he did not use his full strength." This guy's strength. Looking at Suchen's slowly leaving figure, the onlookers felt both awe and joy in their hearts. Many people couldn't help but spit at the 3 unconscious people on the ground. Normally, they would not dare or have the opportunity to do this. However, a proud and tall figure at the foot of the mountain instantly made everyone's mood fall to the bottom. Someone was just about to spit at the 3 people on the ground when he caught sight of the person coming. Before he could take action, he was even frightened by his own spit and coughed violently. Li Rui. Mr. Li, who ranks 8th among the outer disciples. The person on the ground seemed to be one of his distant cousins. It's over, the one who just spit is going to die. This Li Rui seemed to have just returned from a mission, and there were even dried black blood stains on the corners of his clothes that had not yet been wiped off. He first glanced at the three unconscious people on the ground, and then glanced at everyone with sharp eyes. Before he could ask any questions, someone as timid as a mouse was afraid of his power, and even more afraid that his behavior of spitting and humiliating his relatives would be discovered. He immediately raised his hand and shouted. "It was that person who hit me. Here. We haven't gone far yet. Li." Rui narrowed his eyes slightly, looked up at the strange back, curled his thin lips slightly, and said to himself, "It seems to be a flaming stone bull on his back, it's interesting." Everyone just felt their eyes blurred, and a strong wind blew by, and Li Rui's figure had disappeared. Suchen's heart moved slightly as he stepped up the stairs, his feet suddenly stepped on him, and he took a step sideways in an instant. Poof! A cold wind suddenly blew out of sight. It struck from up to down, cracking the stone steps where Suchen was originally standing. Looking at the 3-inch deep crack in the bluestone steps, Suchen was furious. If he hadn't avoided it quickly just now, this palm would have been a real blow. Even if he is injured, his muscles and bones will be broken. Suchen slowly turned around, looked at the person who was attacking, and said coldly, "Do you know me? What's the holiday?" Li Rui didn't expect that this person would react so quickly and be able to dodge his splitting palm, which greatly increased his interest. He crossed his arms and looked at Suchen with interest, including the latter's back. The monster on the top said, "I don't know you, but I have a holiday." "Oh. One of the 3 people you just knocked unconscious is my cousin." Suchen sneered and said, "What do you mean, do you want to have a fight?" He, Li Rui chuckled lightly, and then his face suddenly changed like frost. Without any warning, he stepped on his feet and turned his palms like hobs to strike fiercely. Chi chi chi. Even the air was struck with loud explosions. Ring. You can defeat 3 of my unlucky cousins without getting hurt yourself. It seems that you have some strength. Boy, you'd better show your strongest strength, otherwise you'll make me unhappy if you end the battle too quickly. And you should know the consequences of making me unhappy. Suchen still punched out with one fist to deal with the billowing swords. "Sorry, I really don't know, and I'm not interested in knowing." Snored. "It seems you won't shed tears until you see the coffin." Suddenly, the oncoming palm wind became sharper.